The people are both the masters of both the Congress and the courts. Not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who would pervert it. Where the people fear the government, you have tyranny. And where the government fears the people, you have liberty. Welcome to this great episode of The Real Story. My name's Daniel Hapney, and what we're going to go over tonight, we're going to go over the End the Fed, why you, a Sharon resident, should despise the Federal Reserve System, why you, a Sharon resident, should want to get rid of the Federal Reserve System, and why you, a Sharon resident, should be getting up out of your chair, off the couch, and start realizing that these globalist bankers are hurting your family. So, we'll start off with a little bit of Fed speak. What we have for you is we have Alan Greenspan. I don't know if you remember, but I wanted you to get this piece. This is Alan Greenspan speaking about, well, gee, how's my relationships with presidents? And he lets the viewers or the people know, in this case on PBS, that the Federal Reserve, this private banking cartel, no different from OPEC, doesn't give a darn about what you need, what you want, what Congress or the Senate or even the president has to say or wants or need, because they're a private bank and they're going to do what they damn well please.
Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take. So long as that is in place and there is no evidence that the administration or the Congress or anybody else is requesting that we do things other than what we think is the appropriate thing, then what the relationships are don't frankly matter. And I've had very good relationships with the president.
Well, that was an interesting read. Now you know a little bit about how the Fed chairman feels about you and your family and the rest of your country. So we did something interesting. I went to Boston, Massachusetts, to the Federal Reserve Bank, and we went on a specific day. The day we chose was 11/22/08. And why that's important for you, the Sharon viewer, and the rest of you viewers, is because that happened to be the anniversary that we lost a president. In this case, the president was John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And if you remember, with his executive order, 11,110, he created a competing currency, the United States note. Now that money, he was able to create without having to borrow and pay any interest on, because he used the money we had, in this case, the silver we had at Fort Knox. And so here's a president who decided to go against these globalist bankers, in this case, the Federal Reserve. Now, a lot of you people may think, gee, Oswald, Oswald killed Kennedy and this and that. I'm here to tell you, what did Oswald gain? What was his gain? Let's go the quid pro quo, What was in it, Cui bono? What's this all about? And so think about it. Here's a man who created a competing currency. So on his anniversary anyway, there was an End the Fed rally in Boston. And so what we have for you is we have some great footage of the End the Fed rally and also some fantastic interviews. But it was important that you realized we lost a president over this because he had what? He had courage. This is The Real Story. I'm here with Hal Shurtleff of the JBS, and Hal's holding a book. And I'd have to ask you, Hal, can you tell us a little bit about that book?
The book is entitled The Creature from Jekyll Island. Jekyll Island was the hunting lodge of J.P. Morgan in Georgia, where a secret meeting was held in 1910. In fact, it was about this time, in November of 1910, and that set the stage for the Federal Reserve Bank. And there were about 7 or 8 of these people that represented about 1/4 of the world's wealth.
Total wealth.
Total wealth.
And so they got together on this island called Jekyll Island.
That's right.
And these were bankers, weren't they?
These were all bankers or people who represented. The only one who wasn't was Nelson Aldrich, U.S. Senator from Rhode Island, who was the maternal grandfather of our beloved David Rockefeller.
So if we remember names like Nelson Aldrich Rockefeller,
That's
who
right.
actually made it to VP at some point.
That's right. He was the man who, the instrumental man behind the Fed. His grandson became vice president.
So these really rich people have been doing this stuff for a while, and they're probably pretty good at it. And they possibly made money during all these wars, lending money to people.
Well, the first director of the Federal Reserve Bank is a man named Paul Warburg. Paul Warburg was making about $200,000 a year. Now, in 1910, that was some serious money because it was all backed by gold.
Yeah,
He became the first director of the Federal Reserve Bank, and he took a salary of about $1,500. Now, he didn't do it because of his desire to serve the public. He did it because there was the interest there. Every nickel that the Federal Reserve loans out, they get an interest, and that's where the action is.
It's interesting because they not only, for the viewers out there, they have to remember that in 1 week, go back about 3-4 weeks ago, the Federal Reserve created $930 billion
Out of thin air.
in 1 week. So you got to ask yourself, for the viewers and stuff, who's got to pay the interest on that?
Well, what happens is that when we go to the supermarket or go to the store and the price of a candy bar from 75 cents to $1.50, it's because of what Congress did by authorizing this printing of this money, and the Federal Reserve Bank is profiting from it.
Exactly. Now we have what? We have the bailout of the bankers, where the bankers aren't using the money to help the people.
That's
I
right.
call it stealing from the poor and giving to the rich.
That's exactly what it is.
This is almost like the Robin Hood thing again, okay? But backwards, well, we've let this, who was the guy in charge of Sherwood? Riding through the land, Dennis Moore with lupins and hats. I'll know the story. But no, what I was going with was trying to think of the sheriff of Nottingham. Once again,
Right.
He's shaking down the little people, okay, so the king can have some more money. Well, anyway, the other thing with the wonderful Fed, because once again, here we are in Boston. Okay, we're in front of the Federal Reserve Building in Boston, and this is the institution that has to or doesn't have to pay any taxes.
That's right. In fact, people think the Federal Reserve Bank is a federal government entity. It's a private entity established by Congress back in 1913.
So,
in fact, it was right before the Christmas recess, when half the people were already home, is when they gave it to us.
So this private banking cartel, and I say private because my viewers don't own it.
No, they don't.
It's not a public
That's right.
interest, okay? It's not part of
And
our
you know
government.
something? If you have a private business, you may have been audited by the IRS because if there's a couple of forms weren't filled out, or you didn't pay some taxes you thought you were supposed to pay. The Federal Reserve Bank has never been audited, outside of their furniture and their paper clips, but as far as the books, had never been audited. And what's nice is that there's a bill in Congress right now, sponsored by Ron Paul, to repeal the Fed. And that's why you see the signs here, H.R.
2755.
Now that bill will go out of, the Congress will go out of session, but there'll be another bill number coming up in January. So if you watch this in January of 09, you got to keep your eyes open. So.
That's a good thing. I figure by February, the Americans will be waking up to, high heating bills, okay, to, times get a little tougher when your currency bar is a little less.
Right.
Exactly, Let's see. The other question I'd have, I stand in front of this Federal Reserve, and we discussed that they don't have to pay any federal tax. You said they didn't have to be audited, but I remember reading the Federal Reserve Act, and it said they don't have to pay federal tax.
That's right.
That's kind of nice. Wouldn't you guys like a business? How about you citizens? Would you like to not pay federal tax? How about,
That's right.
when I read they don't have to pay state tax. Would you guys like to get rid of your state income tax? You question one, people would. I asked my viewers, I said, in regards to question one, I'm getting windy, but
Right.
if I own part of their labor, what's to keep me from owning it all?
That's right.
And is their labor their personal property? But anyway,
let's close with this. Inflation is a tax. In fact, John Maynard Keynes, the famous Fabian socialist economist, said in 1920, he said that governments can confiscate the vast portion of the citizens' wealth, and 1 in a million doesn't even know what's happening. But I get you, these people know about inflation. They know that it's theft, and I think more and more people understand. They may not have all the information. In fact, you digest this book, and you know more about banking and money than the average bank president does.